The Game Boy Advance. In my opinion, the best system for RPGs ever. I mean, this device can basically play everything. Final Fantasies 1 through 6, while excluding 3, The Neglected Child. Every single Mother game, multiple Fire Emblems, Golden Sun, it's just a lot of good product right here. With all these amazing games, it's easy for stuff to get overshadowed, and boy do they get overshadowed alright, because man, there's so much obscure stuff on here. I personally thought it would be nice to check out these games and remember them one last time. From Japanese only games, to weird licensed stuff, we're sifting through everything. You guys know how deep I love to dig, and I guarantee you, there will be at least one game you haven't heard of before. Let's put money on it right now. If you recognize every single game in this video, I will pay you $10. No, I'm kidding, I'm broke guys, I can't do that. Let's not worry about money right now. Just sit back, maybe grab some tea or coffee, and listen to me talk about random bullshit for an hour. This is exploring cozy and obscure GBA RPGs. Man, this music is so relaxing. Oh crap, I gotta do the video, my bad. The music's it's just so nice. The longer the video goes on, the more obscure the games will get. I always loved Game Boy Advance RPGs just due to their atmosphere alone. The music, the environments, and just their structure in general. A lot of these games feel a lot smaller when they're on a device that can fit in your pocket. Final Fantasy V feels like a grand, huge world on the SNES, then move on to the GBA and oh boy, everything feels so different. I honestly prefer this feel, and it's a distinct vibe I only get from games on this console. I'm not going to be talking about any old random Game Boy Advance RPG that pops up, okay? This video has standards. I need it to be atmospheric, cozy, and have a certain look. So it's basically just the arbitrary vibes I get from playing it. Yeah, it's high standards right here. Also, the quality of the game doesn't matter. I'll analyze trash because it's very, very funny. Plus, even bad games can bring good feelings. Until you actually play them, of course, obviously. Also, keep in mind the title of this video, exploring cozy and obscure GBA RPGs, meaning a game can be more cozy than it is obscure, vice versa. Back in ye old days of freshman year, I owned a hack 3DS and went ham with playing GBA games, and I found a lot of really cool overlooked gems on the system. Riviera, the Promised Land. This game's not so much obscure as it is forgotten and very weird. I mean, it has a YouTube review with over like 100k views on it. The arbitrary rules I just made up now state that any game with a YouTube video with over 100k views on it isn't that obscure. Plus, it had a couple of re-releases. I've never seen anything like this game, and I don't know what they were going for here, to be honest. It's like a corridor of battles and cutscenes with a hub world and a bunch of random peeps that appear and you can interact with them. This isn't even like a criticism of the game or anything. This is just a format I've never seen in the game before. A lot of people are mixed on it because of how far away it strays from RPG tradition, but can you really blame it? Like, if you want a traditional RPG, just play the thousands of them on the market. I'm sure you won't have any trouble getting one. This focuses more on battles and character interactions over actual exploration. Of course, there are exploration aspects to this game, but most of it boils down to will you go left or will you go right? Revolutionary. This game has the good old anime aesthetic with those crazy attack animations and over-the-top movements. Plus, just look at this, man. Really, it's the most anime thing I've ever seen in my life. As someone who has a newfound love for anime, I can sort of appreciate it. This art is so freaking good, dog. Just take it in. Just take it in. I love these somewhat simplistic sprites over these beautifully crafted environments. And the way every sprite moves, like there's a constant gush of wind entering the room, is so endearing. This man's hair is waving 24/7, and I'm here for it, honestly. This game is also sort of a dating sim, and yeah, I didn't care for that part too much. I'm here for the vibes, guys. I would never want to simulate dating because I could just go outside and do it IRL. Nah, I'm just kidding. I have the personality of a brick wall. This is the best I'm ever gonna get for a while. Fia is easily my favorite. Not in battles though. She struggles a little bit in battles, let me tell you. It's kinda a harem, but I really did not care about that part at all. Worst thing is, I know I would have eaten this up as a teenager. I mean, I was a teenager when I first played this game. I didn't even care about it back then, so maybe not. Well, I actually still am a teenager. I mean, I'm 18, so I'm like a whole ass adult now, but whatever, that doesn't matter. 4 years and I'm still playing these games. I can't even be upset because they're awesome. This was also my first introduction to the idea of weapon durability in an RPG. Yes, I did play this before Fire Emblem, by the way. It's not a huge deal given the fact that there are weapons that have infinite durability, but it makes you be more judicious in your attacks. It has a few remakes, but the GBA version easily emasculates all of them, no contest. We got Lil Man PSP version right here, which is decent, but the backgrounds and portraits aren't compressed anymore, which ironically enough takes away from the atmosphere. And the music also sounds more crispy. How dare they force me to listen to this game the way it's intended? It just kind of makes everything feel worse for me. I mean, look at these two side by side. The enemies and characters just don't really look like they fit into this world all that much. And I unironically enjoy the compressed sound of the GBA. People always act like it's a downside when playing the system, but oh boy, I adore it. It brings such a cozy atmosphere, only found in one place, that place being this system. Why are they making games better? I want my games to have glaring flaws that everyone agrees we'd be better without. I mention this game mainly due to the fact that it carries everything I love about GBA RPGs. It's not huge in scope and seems very simplistic at its core, but also has a lot of material to get immersed in. It feels like a mix of modern and retro in a way. I love the SNES era of RPGs, and I also like a lot of the newer stuff as well. And the GBA generation honestly feels like a weird amalgamation of that, kind of like the awkward teen years of RPGs. But I think we all look back on our awkward teen years kind of fondly. I sure do, despite the fact that I probably shouldn't. There was a lot of cringe in my mind back then, okay? Despite that, it's perfect to me, solely due to its imperfections. Also, we have even Littler Man over here, the Steam port, which is just the PSP port on computer. It looks mid as hell, man. Ugly font and clunky UI. What the hell are these icons doing up here, and why do they take up so much space? Looks like a mobile game. What is up with RPG remasters having terrible UI? This is like an ongoing trend and it pains me so much. They're making my favorite RPGs look like mobile game schlock. This is really an old man yells at cloud moment, huh? I just want to play my favorite RPGs without having my eyes be assaulted every time I open the menu, please. Anyway, let's get into the real juicy stuff now. That's right, the video hasn't even really begun yet. That was just the appetizer. Let's get into it. I don't know why I said it like that. That sounded really weird. I'm sorry if that made you uncomfortable. It made me uncomfortable too. When looking at Sword of Mana, it's really weird in the fact that it's a remake of an already overlooked Game Boy game, Final Fantasy Adventure. Or if you're not a total normie, Seiken Densetsu. What makes this even more weird, and something that barely anybody even knows, is that Seiken Densetsu is actually a revival of a dead-in-the-water IP that is now lost media. Seiken Densetsu, The Emergence of Excalibur, a cancelled Famicom RPG planned to release in '87. The series was kinda dead after a bit just due to money restraints, but some brave soul decided to revive it. It's cool they did that because it turned into a pretty cool series. I've played Sword of Mana a decent amount, but never actually played the game it's a remake of. I feel like it would be funnier if I just didn't do that, so I'm not going to. This is kind of the forgotten Seiken Densetsu game. Usually remakes get less attention, but man, this game got shafted. It's not super obscure if you're in certain spaces, and I mean, you're watching this video right now, you probably know what it is. Nobody watching this 1-hour video on obscure Game Boy Advance RPGs wouldn't know what that game is. And if you actually don't know what that game is, then why are you here? You look very out of place right now. I'm kidding, obviously, but this game kind of feels sort of elusive in a way. It might be due to the atmosphere of the game itself. A lot of these GBA games can feel a little bit lonely, especially when you're playing a game that no one really talks about anymore. The environments themselves can be a bit empty, and the sound compression emits this sort of echoey tone. Playing this game on a lonely, quiet afternoon, all by yourself, is certainly an experience. It's really melancholy. The gameplay and story itself isn't super crazy, which kind of gets me to reflect on life and my place in the world. Sometimes I wonder if I'm the only person in the entire world currently playing this game. The environments and pixel art here is so gorgeous as well. As someone who does pixel art themselves, I can truly appreciate how it's done in this game. I'm in a lot of pixel art related circles, and every half a year or so, screenshots of this game get thrown around and people are in absolute awe at how it looks. Then they find out it's a real game that you can actually play and they get even more impressed. Hell, I discovered the Mana series because one of my friends posted a screenshot of this game and I knew I wanted to play whatever it came from. In general, the RPG environments on the GBA are almost unmatched anywhere. All the Game Boy Advance Final Fantasy games have absolutely gorgeous battle environments. The only reason why I prefer FF4 and 5 on the GBA is due to this fact alone, and also the improved sprites. They look very nice. I like them a lot. Both of these games are amazing, but one thing that always bothered me that nobody seems to understand is that for some reason, both of these games look remarkably, how do I say this? They look remarkably lacking compared to other RPGs on the system. Let me put it nicely like that. It's charming in its own right, but man, this is so much better. Anybody who says otherwise is a sociopath. There's no other way around it. I show my artist friends screenshots from these games on the SNES, and they're baffled at how simple these two games look on the system. As someone who does pixel art, like I said earlier, it's really simplistic. Simplistic enough that a guy who's only been doing pixel art for like 6 months could remake these with slightly better quality. It's mostly the battle environments though. The enemies in FF5 look amazing, but Sword of Mana in particular just strikes a chord with me. I do have a very nice history with this game, funnily enough. The summer before sophomore year, I got addicted to RPGs and would play anything I could get my hands on. This was one of those games, and it was such a nice experience. Imagine just waking up on a bright sunny day, laying down on the couch while birds are singing outside, and playing this for 9 hours. That summer stands out to me, especially because that was truly the first summer I could really call lazy. I always packed my summers with activities, even when a certain pandemic hindered that. I'd always be outdoors doing stuff and just going out for hours. But that lazy summer was just months of enjoying time by myself with minimal distractions and getting immersed in these fictional worlds. I think that was the first summer where I didn't hang out with a single one of my friends, and I was totally happy with that. Ever since then, life has been kind of stressful and kind of hectic, so it's nice to look back on that time where I could actually wake up randomly on the couch with Final Fantasy Dawn of Souls playing next to me. I think we all have at least one summer where you can remember doing nothing for most of it and it being your most memorable one. The summer after that was awesome and I met a lot of cool people and made a ton of new friends, but I don't look back on it as fondly. There's something special about the one I had by myself, and Sword of Mana provides one of the most vivid memories of that. The other Mana games were a bit stressful with how airy some of the attacks felt. Like you couldn't really tell if a hit landed or not, but here, it's pretty seamless. The game is very long just due to how grindy it is, but it's a feature, not a flaw. I know occupying yourself with media generally isn't the best way to reflect on life, but I can't help it with this game. The compressed shrills that come out of my console just got me thinking about stuff, which brings me to Final Fantasy Dawn of Souls, baby, a kind of forgotten compilation of FF1 and FF2, generally overshadowed by the other more accessible ways to play the game, even back then. But in my opinion, this is the best way to play it. I'm totally not biased or anything though. FF1 really impressed me with how free it all felt. I wasn't expecting that from a remake of an NES game after all. And the art direction for both of these games is amazing. Doesn't distract me from the fact that FF2 was an absolute slog of a game, but whatever. I have a soft spot for the Dawn of Souls version over anything else. I remember getting so frustrated with the grinding in this game that I just said fuck it and went off to the gym to grind there instead. Okay, that kind of sounded wrong. I went to the gym to work out, guys. That summer I worked out a lot. Yeah. Sleep, RPG, workout, repeat. That was my routine for 3 months. It's funny because before bed, I did this really weird thing where I would play WarioWare Gold, and every time I lost a micro game, I would do like 20 push-ups. I don't know what the hell I was smoking to think it up, but hey, the results came in, so I'm not complaining. Just play WarioWare Gold if you want to get buff. I'm not joking, that's genuine advice right here. Anyway, I have a whole ass video on why I think FF2 is an abomination. It's a very sloppy and mediocre video, but my voice is relaxing in it. I listen to it to help me fall asleep sometimes. Is it narcissistic to fall asleep to my own voice? Yeah, saying that out loud, that kind of sounds fucked up. What the hell? The GBA Final Fantasies are weirdly overlooked in general, despite being part of the massive multimedia phenomenon that is this series. I mean, FF5 was always the overlooked one, and it's even more overlooked on the Game Boy Advance. Sorry, I'm just trying to justify me talking about it in the video because I really like this game. I wanted to talk about 4, but I knew people would call me out for it not being obscure enough. So I'm talking about 5, and let me tell you, 5 on the Game Boy Advance is just an experience. Like I said earlier, the environments are breathtaking, and just the change in systems fundamentally alters how this game plays for me. In essence, it's the same game, but my 8 brain just gets happier when playing this one. Hell, FF5 in general is just amazing vibes-wise, but here it's actually peaked. I've played this game a countless amount of times, and yet I still haven't beaten it. The GBA has a lot of these weird RPG ports that make the game either better or infinitely worse. Those Breath of Fire ports keep me up at night all the time. The only improvement they added is a better walking speed. It's not worth it, man. I don't care what you say, it's not worth it. Compare these character portraits to the original. These things are looking into my soul. I don't want to feel like my life is in danger every single time I open the menu. Unlike the Breath of Fire ports though, FF5 on GBA keeps the charm of the original while also creating a brand new experience as well. And the character portraits here don't make me want to go into witness protection, so that's a good thing. This game doesn't take itself seriously at all, which makes it really endearing. Like, I'ma be so real, I am busy, man, okay? I don't have time to follow the intricate, complex story of some 500+ hour RPG. It's just nice to know that I can pick up this game at any time in my life and not be confused about what's going on. Despite how unserious it is, it still feels really cinematic at times. The opening cutscenes are so iconic, and the main theme is mesmerizing. I love how often they remix this theme as well. Plus, this is like a baby's first RPG, not brain dead easy like FF4, but easy enough to where you can just kind of sit back and play it while watching anime or something. I like to do these 3-hour grind sessions where I optimize my characters and improve their jobs while watching BoJack Horseman. I gotta watch the BoJack to counteract the amount of joy I feel playing this game. The job system for the Final Fantasy series is perfected here in my opinion. Sure, different more polished variations of it come on later, but man, it's so good here. You get jobs throughout the game from the crystals of the elements which shatter, and anyone can pick any job and master it. Everyone here starts as a blank slate and you can do whatever you want with them. I'm not gonna lie, I like to be unique and pick the underpowered jobs just for the fun of it. I wouldn't really call FF5 a sandbox game, but man, it does feel like that sometimes. It's so off-rail in its progression, and it doesn't seem to care if you cheese the game or not. And let me tell you, I cheese this game a lot. It's a quaint little game with a kick-ass soundtrack, and you get to fight a fucking tree. And while I'm going down memory lane, lane, I think we should talk about Shining Soul. This game's like a fever dream for me, man. I played this game the same summer I played Sword of Mana. And while Sword of Mana captivated me, this game, it did something to me. I can't tell you what it did, but it sure did do something. The game isn't very long, but it has a lot to do. A lot that my dumb little brain did not understand back then and still doesn't now. All I know is this game is really grindy. It's one big grind sesh with a little bit of gameplay sprinkled in to give you something nice to look at while your brain turns to mashed potatoes. I am not averse to grinding. In fact, it's tradition for me to grind like hell before fighting a final boss in an RPG. And this game has like a respectable type of grind. Like the more egregious and slow everything is, the more I ironically respect it for that. I kinda just wish the devs just went all in and added Korean MMO levels of grind to this. It'd be so funny if it took like 5 hours just to level up. I always had a soft spot for those single player RPGs that kinda replicate MMO levels of tedium and pointless intricacy. This was actually made by Atlas, who funnily enough I am not at all familiar with. Their most famous stuff I haven't at all touched just due to circumstance. I recently picked up Persona 4 and immediately regretted it because now I have another longest RPG in my backlog. I have a huge problem, guys. Their games have always been kinda elusive to me. They're known for churning out the absolute cream of the crop, but I somehow managed to escape their influence. This is the exception though. I don't know what compelled Obi to play this, but I certainly did play this alright. The game got pretty mixed reviews, but has gained a small following over the years. Hell, I don't even know if it's a following at all. I just think it's some guys remembering this thing exists and saying, huh, to themselves before forgetting again. It's kinda sad really, because it's a cute little game, despite not playing like a cute little game at all. You can tell it's lower budget because they barely even bother with a real opening cutscene. You just get plopped into this world and you gotta slaughter people now. Plus, a lot of these portraits and backgrounds are obviously just compressed drawings and not actual pixel art. I find it charming in a way. I always liked it when GBA games did this, as long as it wasn't excessive. Or wasn't this, because this is terrible. My eyes are hurting right now just looking at it. The gameplay itself is pretty standard. Just hit things, then run away before they can actually hit you back. Whoa. It's way more forgiving than I remember. I don't know why, but I recall this being super brutal. I died on the first boss and was stressing the hell out because I was worried about some horrible punishment that would befall me. But no, it just let me go back to the boss with no consequences. So I got reckless and proceeded to die a few more times. Great. Death gets worse and more annoying later on, but it's not nearly as bad as I remembered. I think the main reason why my memory of this game is so iffy is because I only played it over like the span of 2 days the first time. I was in an RPG marathon then and trying to knock out each game as fast as possible. You see, the worst part about having a hack 3DS is there's too much stuff to do when you're in the mood to play, and then there's not enough to do when you're not in the mood to play. And I think this game kind of led to my RPG binge fizzling out. It's not even this game's fault if I'm being honest. I remember lying on the couch all day, slaughtering enemies, and rushing through the game to get it done. Which like, that's not a way to play a game. What's the point of playing it if you don't even actually want to experience the game itself? Like, I know it's not the most compelling thing ever, but nowadays I can see the appeal. It's a cozy little game on the surface with a decent amount of depth underneath. Enough depth to actually make you want to do multiple playthroughs. Of course, I did the basic bitch option of warrior with the sword because this is the one time in my life where I don't feel compelled to want to stand out in a way. And just like my basic ass class and weapon pick, the settings in this are also very basic. Cave, labyrinth, 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 forest. Oh, okay, actually the forest is the most memorable one. I love how cramped it feels. It's so cozy despite the enemies trying to eat my eyes out. I also don't like the bosses in this game that much. They all have these quirks that make them annoying to fight, and I really don't like gimmick bosses in RPGs. It's not that they're inherently bad, it's just they're hard to do correctly. These gimmicks don't make the bosses harder. I mean, I'm literally standing still for like 90% of this fight, dog. This is one of those games that I really like, but for every good thing I have to say, I have like 3 bad things. But those bad things are like really tiny little nitpicks that don't even matter at all. If you want to play a game while watching If My Wife Becomes an Elementary School Student, yes, this is a real show, then pick this up, or play it through totally not legally gray means, am I right? What's not legally gray is loving Shining Soul 2 because it is above the age of 18. God, what a fucking dumb segue, man. What am I even saying at this point? What is this script? Who wrote this? Oh yeah, I wrote this, Yeah, I'm ignoring that. This game is very good, yes. Shining Soul 1 is that one friend you have who's still cool as hell, but he lives with his parents and works at McDonald's. Shining Soul 2 is that other friend who goes to Yale with a 4.0 GPA and is also really hot. So Shining Soul 2 is just freaking better. It's more Shining Soul, but feels like a real game and not a huge grind session with a few corridors breaking up the action. This game is fun. Everything about it is fun. But I ended up liking Shining Soul 1 more. I mean, 2 makes 1 look like a freaking tech demo, but oh my gosh, my bias is so strongly skewed towards the first game. The music here is better, the combat is more fluid, there are more class picks, and it has an actual story. But man, I just like 1 more, I'm sorry, I don't know why. In essence, it's basically a better version of the first, with similar looking UI, art style, and linear levels. But I just had less fun with this somehow. I decided to play as an archer, the second most basic bitch option out there, and I don't think the archer is as good in this game as it was in the last one. Last game, the areas were more open and there was more space to move around and dodge enemies. Here, the levels are sort of cramped and I found myself being cornered multiple times. The basics are still there though, but some changes are made. They somehow managed to make death even more forgiving than it was last game. And charging up attacks now costs MP, which is totally not annoying, but I can see why they did it. Movement is a lot faster, and the story is intertwined with the gameplay. What do I mean by this? Well, in the first game, it just felt like a dungeon crawler with the shoddy story slapped right onto it. But this has a good balance of both. It actually has these cool cutscenes where you can sort of eavesdrop on enemies and listen on their conversations. You can jump in and murder their asses, and I don't know what the other outcome is because I always came in swinging. It's cool that even the enemies have actual characterization and aren't just freaking boring. The pixel art here looks so much better as well. Sure, the environments are kind of the same and sort of cheap looking, in a charming way of course, but the animations are a lot more fluid, plus the cutscenes are cleaner looking as well. This one just has more charm in general. You can get away with looking sort of cheap when your game just has that vibe to it. I don't know what that vibe is, it's not tangible, I can't really describe it, but it's just there. I mean, put this next to Sword of Mana, and this game is losing visuals wise, in gameplay wise, and story wise. Okay, you get the point. It's one of those things that when you're actively playing, you're kind of neutral, but looking back on your experience, you can say you liked it. Also, the music here is so much better as well. Last game's music was some milquetoast RPG stuff. But here, there's a lot of memorable tunes. I wouldn't be able to name them, but when they show up, I could be like, hey, that's from Shining Soul 2. One major problem I have though is it lore dumps on you right off the bat. Maybe it's because I'm binging like 10 plus games back to back, but I was not at all interested. There's like a 4-minute cutscene with information I do not care about at all being thrown in my face. I know I was kind of crapping on Shining Soul 1 for not having a story, but it kinda sorta does. You don't have to engage in it if you don't want to, and I like how it just drops you into this world, no explanation given. It's more fun when you have to piece information together instead of having it be fed to you. It's a big issue I have with RPGs in general. They just lore dump on you right when the game boots up and talks about stuff I do not care about. It is especially egregious here. I didn't feel like I was actually being told anything. I zoned out like halfway through and didn't feel lost at all when the story came back up again. Overall, it's just a more paused version of the first game, and it's a lot less grindy as well. I know I am one of the very few psychopaths who prefers the first game, but if you're a regular of my channel, bad opinions won't faze you anymore. Oh, also these menu icons in both games are super cute. I like them a lot. On to the next game, which is even cuter somehow. To the guy who said Lunar Legend is bad, I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him. I just want to talk to him.
I just want to shoot him.
My only knowledge of this game prior to actually playing it was that it was apparently worse than the PS1 version, which honestly, my relationship with the series is like really complicated. Anyone who has been a fan of me for a while, all 3 of you, would know I have mixed feelings on the PS1 remake. Never played the original, and I have no reason to do so, thank you very much. But I was not expecting to have so much to say about this game, and almost all of it is good too. Before I talk about anything gameplay wise, I had to talk about the art. I think the art in this game kind of encapsulates everything I love and despise about the art on this system. Just let me get this out of the way right now. I don't like the way the character portraits look, okay? They're obviously ripped from the PS1 version, and the shading is awful. There's too much going on. Other than that, I love this game, guys. You don't know how much I love this thing, okay? I adore everything about it. The weird thing about Game Boy Advance art is that on its own, it doesn't look that great. I mean, these enemy sprites look a little rough there, don't you think? The colors and shading is definitely off, and there's too much going on. It looks very messy. On its own, it's very sloppy, but as a whole, when complemented with these backgrounds and other things on the screen, it just comes together so nicely. You don't notice how immature it looks because it fits in so well with everything else. One thing that sets apart making pixel art for video games than just making standalone pixel art is that certain things like enemies shouldn't be too detailed. A lot of detail on its own looks good, but when plopped into certain environments, it kind of looks messy. Readability is the #1 thing you need when making sprites for a video game. It doesn't matter how good it looks, if there's too much going on, you have failed. Okay, that's freaking hyperbolic as hell, but you get what I mean. Back when I was helping make the art for a Mother fan game, I initially made a mistake of making the enemies way too detailed. I just had way too many colors and too much shading going on. Eventually, I toned it the hell down and made everything a lot simpler. On its own, it's not as impressive, but in context of the game, it's so much nicer to look at. The character sprites themselves stand out more despite being less detailed. And in Lunar, I actually think the character sprites themselves look fantastic, and oh my gosh, they're so expressive as well. I don't know why the character sprites look so good and the enemy sprites look not great, but that's the thing, right? I love how you can tell their personalities just by looking at their victory animations. Alex comes off as adventurous and and lighthearted while maintaining a high level of confidence. Luna looks mature and elegant, just happy that everyone got out okay. Nash looks tired as hell, like every battle is some taxing exercise for him. And Ramu, I don't know, looks almost overconfident, closing his eyes and smiling while thinking about how badass he looks. They really did not hold back on the animations, especially in these cutscenes, which are amazing. I generally would say the aesthetic of this game is better than the PS1 version. I know what I just said is blasphemy, and I will be sent to the gates of hell for this, but I stand by it. Yeah, the PS1 version has these beautifully crafted animations and amazing battle environments, but the personality isn't as noticeable here. Everyone looks sort of chibi and is cute and all, but the characters here just feel so much more fleshed out. Which, yes, I managed to love these characters a lot. Their relationship is already established before you play the game, but it's interesting to see how well they play off each other. I also really like Ramu, I still have no idea. Yeah, I'm just studying for Ramu. I feel like it'd be funny if I just mispronounced it the entire time. I know a lot of people don't like Ramu, but he's the tropey, sort of jerkish, egotistical K character, but it's not as annoying here. It's interesting to see conflict within this group that obviously gets along well with each other. Luna acts as a mediator who's trying to keep things in order despite constant fighting. And there's also Na, who is a voice of reason but isn't immune to getting caught up in petty bullshit. When playing a game through the lens of these naive kids, it makes the world feel a lot more grand. That is to say, I really like the world building here. They don't do anything super crazy here, in fact it's like a typical RPG narrative, but just the visuals combined with the fact that you're these kids on a journey unsupervised makes it feel more fun. Although the lack of a real world map kinda takes me away from that. Like, I'm not selling for the Super Mario World crap, come on, let me walk around, goddammit. Might I add, the UI in this game is kinda terrible. It wasn't super confusing and I understood it pretty quickly, but oh my gosh, it just sucks to look at. The Game Boy Advance also has a problem with the games having really bad UI for some reason. Like, I'm not even sure if this is a problem with the system itself. Devs just randomly forgot to do basic menuing. The battles themselves aren't super remarkable either, and they're actually really easy. I'm really glad this game had auto battle because I'm not mashing A for hours, and it's also a very easy game, dare I say a baby game. Lunar on the PS1 was really good difficulty wise. They just challenged the player a lot. This game, no, it didn't do that at all actually. I don't mind this at all though, because it just makes it a more relaxing experience. Like, I'm just now realizing there aren't many RPGs where you straight up play as kids, or at least there aren't nearly enough as there should be. Even then, they don't play it up nearly as much as they should. These feel like real kids. Oh my god, I'm getting old. These motherfuckers are 15 and I'm referring to them as kids? Alex is 17 years. What the hell? Yeah, you get my point. They act like, how do I say this without reminding myself of the fact that my youth is fleeting? They act their age. Yeah, they definitely do that. They're very, normal age. I'm a boomer, guys. I'm freaking old. I'm not even reading off the script right now. I'm genuinely upset. The game is definitely overshadowed by its PS1 predecessor, but I'd suggest you check it out anyway. I'd say it's good, dare I say better, but I don't want to make this mob even angrier than they already are. And while you're checking out Lunar Legend, I also suggest that you take a look at Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. No, I'm kidding. Don't do that because this game is very, very not good. Remember earlier when I said I'd talk about bad games? This is the bad game. Point and laugh, everybody. I got my hopes up so high for this because the battles in this game look so good. And say what you want about Harry Potter, but the Game Boy Color RPG is like really good for absolutely no reason. So I expected this to also be really good for no reason, but no, I was dumb for thinking that because this is actually garbage. I'm sorry to the one guy who loves this game, and I see you loading your gun right now, but let me preface this by saying I have like no attachment to Harry Potter at all. All of the controversy, the characters, hell, even the story, I had consumed against my own will. My mom indoctrinated me to like Harry Potter, and I suffered through 2.5 books before going, hey, this is boring. Then I proceeded to read Big Nate and Diary of a Wimpy Kid because I have an eye for actual peak fiction. It's actually really dumb because my 5th grade teacher like forbid us from reading quote picture books in class, and like for some reason this only applied to me. I was the only one who was ever called out for this. Freaking my friend would carry around a big ass compilation book worth of hundreds of pages of short comic strips, and the teacher just didn't give a shit. But the moment my hands are on the book, she's taking it away immediately. Had to freaking read books about 9/11 and the Titanic. Yeah, I'm mainly looking at this through the lens of an RPG, and yeah, no, it's not really that good, it's not cozy, and at least it's obscure, right? Looking up Harry Potter Game Boy Advance RPG won't net any of the results you want. You gotta know the name of this game word for word, or else Google will tell you to go fuck yourself and find it on your own. Plus, there's like a trillion Harry Potter games on the Game Boy Advance, and this is like the most overshadowed one. I don't want to call it overshadowed, it's not overshadowed, it deserves to be shadowed actually. The visuals here aren't too bad, but god damn, these motherfuckers look ugly in their portraits. I don't get it, because in the other GBA games, they look fine and pretty stylized. Here, they look like trace sprites of their actors. I mean, Ron literally looks like he's on crack. He looks like a throwaway Breaking Bad character that would be used to show the audience how bad drugs are. The battling is decent, but the attacks take up MP, which is actually very unique and makes sense given the setting. But it's not really well implemented. I tried to play strategically with my MP, but just ended up going for the weakest spell, which costs 0 MP. Usually in RPGs, I like to save all my MP for bosses, and it was no different here. The attacks progressively cost more MP to use, but it wasn't substantial enough for me to want to actually use them. I do have to say though, visually, the battles look great. I love the sort of 2.5D effect it uses. The way the angle changes is just so satisfying. Its perspective reminds me of Golden Sun. I think my high expectations for this resulted from that. A lot of licensed games back in the day looked very tacky visually. Seeing one that actually looks serviceable is novel. And yeah, the battles are the best part of this game. Too bad the gameplay is only like 5 hours long and the story sucks. In fact, it barely has any real story at all. I know it's based off of one of those books I haven't freaking read, but like there's barely anything here. Like even as somebody who hasn't read the book, I can tell there's like so little going on. Just something happened. Ooh, now there's a sort of decent dungeon you have to go through and kill a boss. Now let's teleport you to the next set piece against your will. Which yeah, I actually do like the dungeons in this. You can use certain spells in the overworld, and they're utilized pretty elegantly. It's never annoying, and it's decently intuitive. Going back to the 5-hour thing, a 5-hour RPG on any device is actual insanity. Like even the Gameboy could cram in like a 13-hour RPG inside of it. I'd feel ripped off if I played this through legally not great means, am I right? Even the music is kind of boring. I was expecting to praise this game, but nope. Maybe this is obscure for a reason. Let's move on to a licensed game that's supposed to be bad, but somehow isn't. Lord of the Ring, Return of the King. This was the game I was preparing to crap on. I had like a whole bunch of stuff like in the back of my head that I was going to talk about, but I just didn't get to it because this game's good. This is the underdog of the video. I was expecting to hate it, but somehow I didn't, actually. This is basically the antithesis of what the Harry Potter game was. I didn't even mean to play this game. I just downloaded the wrong one. Apparently, there are like 5 Lord of the Rings games on the system that I've never heard of before. I meant to get the turn-based tactical RPG, but downloaded this instead, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad I made that mistake. Unlike the Harry Potter game, I went into this one wanting to crap on it, but no. I low-key liked it. I wouldn't call it a good game, but man, it's a good game. I would unironically recommend this to someone. I do suck at it though, and I mean like I really suck at it. Here's a montage of me stupidly dying. I have almost no history with the Lord of the Rings franchise. I mean, I called it Lord of the Ring earlier. That doesn't tip you off at all. I watched the first 20 minutes of the first movie with a friend in Discord, but that's about it. So I was completely lost on the story and characters. Lord of the Rings is one of those things for me that I have little to no exposure to at all, despite it being a cult classic. It's one of those things that I know I would love if I had watched it myself, but just haven't done so yet. That's why playing these games felt like such whiplash. I don't know these settings, I don't know what's going on. What the hell is going on? Here's the thing about this game. I would call it good for a very peculiar set of reasons. I don't like the gameplay, I don't like the aesthetic, like all of it is freaking ugly. And even though I can give it some leeway since I have little to no prior knowledge on the series, the story seems very lackluster. Like, there are licensed games I've played where it can perfectly keep up with the story, despite almost having never seen the source material. This one just kinda hopes you've seen the movie to know what's going on, but I can't knock it for that too much. I'd say the main thing that makes this game serviceable, or even borderline good, is the customization. It has all these loot drops with cool modifiers and a bunch of stats to take into account. Like, look at this level screen. There are so many playstyles you can pursue. To actually get to that point, you have to play the game though, and the first parts of the game are kinda sorta not fun. It gets better once you figure out how you truly want to play the game, but the first parts are a slog to get through. Just like the Harry Potter game, it's very short, but unlike the Harry Potter game, there's so much variety here that I can't be mad. Here, it feels like they sacrifice length for diversity in playstyles, while in Harry Potter, it feels like they sacrifice length because, I don't know, they got lazy or something. I'm not J.K. Rowling. Would I buy this game with real life money? Hell no. Would I play this game willingly if it wasn't for this video? No. But would I recommend you play it? Kinda, yeah. I'm hesitant to call it good, but I can't help but feel that way when taking into account all of its aspects. I know some people will say a game is, quote, fun, but not good, but this feels like the opposite. It's not fun, but it's very good. It becomes more fun the more you get to take advantage of its mechanics. And while we're on the topic of licensed games, I think it's my time to talk about Dragon Ball Z, The Legacy of Goku 2. I played this for 15 minutes. I know, we are both shocked. Hear me out. When you've been playing this many RPGs back to back to back to back, sometimes you don't want to keep playing. I have a certain level of integrity. Okay, let's pretend I have any kind of integrity at all. I like to see games through all the way, or at least halfway, before I give an opinion on them. 15 minutes of gameplay doesn't cut it for me. I wouldn't have played it for this little if I didn't have a legitimate reason, but I do. I adored the aesthetic of this game, and I don't really know much about Dragon Ball. I don't know how much of that atmosphere I can attribute to the series or to this game specifically. In my notes I wrote serene-ass music, which is a very elegant way to describe it, I guess. I was more so expecting some hype adventurous tunes, but instead I was met with this. The way this game feels is also really relaxing. It's so smooth. The way everyone controls here puts both Shining Souls games to absolute shame. Attacks feel fluid, running is awesome and not at all annoying, and flying, oh god, I love the flying here. There's a certain level of polish to this that I wouldn't expect from a GBA licensed game, although licensed anime games do tend to be better in general. That's not always the case though, oh god, that's not always the case at all. Everyone talks this game up, but I wouldn't really understand why, because the moment I had to battle anything, I turned it off. The past week for me has been playing RPGs non-stop, and after a certain point, this whole battling thing takes a backseat in favor of everything else. And at this point, I am solely here for the experience, not the gameplay. Of course, the gameplay complements the experience, but here, I was just fine leaving it at that, and I don't regret leaving it there either. Despite not knowing these characters, I wasn't really lost on the story at the beginning, and can say I enjoyed the little I saw. Also, the world map looks, it looks very interesting. Something even more interesting was Demikids' Dark version, a game I even played less of. Wow. Apparently, it's a Shin Megami Tensei spin-off, which I didn't even know until like right now. I have no idea what SMT is, never played it, never touched it, never even watched gameplay of it. I honestly think I downloaded this game on complete accident, because I don't remember ever agreeing to touch this. I had no idea what I was jumping into, and it's a Pokemon type game, okay. From what I've seen, the Demikids series in general doesn't seem that obscure, but the GBA game sure is. Or at least that's how it feels. Is it cozy? Sorta. Is it obscure? Kinda. The moment I realized what it was, I turned it off and went to sleep, and I'm totally okay with that. Not a huge fan of the enemy sprites here either. Unlike in Lunar Legend, the flaws are a lot more noticeable, since the enemies are a focal point of the battle screen. The shading and dithering just looks out of place in certain parts, but hey, the music is very, very nice. Okay. So this is where things start to get somewhat weird. Just for me, is I have no experience with any of these games, and you probably don't either. We're getting much more obscure with this, so I think we should start off with Tactics Ogre, the Knight of Lodis. This is a series that already gets little attention, so you must imagine how neglected the Game Boy Advance game is. I didn't get my own footage for this. Well, I kinda sorta did. I played it for a little bit, but I liked it so much, I put it on my 3DS through totally not legally gray means. And I played it there instead to really immerse myself. This game is an odd kind of cozy. I hesitate to call it a dark fantasy setting, but at its core, I really think it is that. Don't let these cute sprites fool you. This world is bleak. This story is bleak. The console game does a much better job at making this world feel more dark, but this game doesn't do a bad job either. I was always fond of these darker settings. It can get tiring being in these whimsical fantasy worlds all the time, so this was honestly a nice change of pace. I wouldn't really call this type of setting cozy though, it's really weird. Like for instance, I love Berserk, I love everything about it, and one thing I love is the atmosphere. Its art does so much to complement how it feels, and I listened to the 1997 anime soundtrack to really get in the mood. I can't help but feel serene. Of course, given this world, I'm always in fight or flight mode, waiting for something to happen. But at the same time, I can't help but feel relaxed, despite it not having a cozy atmosphere. I feel the same here. The gameplay can be genuinely hectic at times, and people die. But I can't help but feel relaxed when playing it. Maybe it's the rain. You guys know how much I love rain. This was one of the later games I played around when I was getting burnt out. But this game really revitalized my will to keep working on this video, so you can thank it for that. It's just so well put together. I love the visuals, despite it not really being as good as it was on the PS1. Again, my bias kinda makes me prefer it. Sure, the brighter colors don't really fit the story or setting, but the irrational part of my brain likes this more. The environments at times are really nice to look at, and the music is a mix of adventurous, but also foreboding. I'm not very familiar with tactical RPGs, but I adore playing them. One major complaint I have with turn-based RPGs, despite really liking them, is that after a certain point, strategy isn't really as prevalent. Maybe save for a few battles against harder enemies or bosses. Here, every single encounter requires you to genuinely think out a strategy. No brain-dead button mashing or skipping through stuff. Sure, I don't really have like a lot of time to play these types of games anymore, but when I do, I am glued to the screen. I actually got addicted to the Game Boy Advance Fire Emblems a few years back, and I spent 4 days straight playing them. There's a reason these types of games are so highly regarded, and having to replay the same battle over and over again somehow isn't frustrating. I actually like the permadeath in these games. I hate them in turn-based stuff, but I love it here. These games require you to be more meticulous in how you play. There's much more to factor in. When a character of mine dies, it feels entirely like my fault. My dumbass got this man killed, and I have to live with that fact forever. Or I reset. Let's be real, we all reset, and I have no shame in airing out anyone's dirty laundry. Despite being on this tiny little itty-bitty console, it actually helps make everything feel much larger. Your journey is just a small piece of an all-encompassing narrative in an even larger intertwined world. Your characters all have arcs, but your decisions massively impact that. I love how this game makes you feel so insignificant. It's demotivating, but at the same time, it makes me want to become stronger. Oftentimes, the odds feel extremely stacked against me, and I love it for that. I often find myself wishing more games were ruthlessly difficult in ways that felt realistic. No one-shot BS or increased crit rates, that's not fun. This is. I mean, there are motherfuckers on Reddit complaining that you can't overlevel. I don't need to say anything about that, it speaks for itself. This game is cozy in a screwed up way, a way where it shouldn't be what it is. Maybe my bias towards the Game Boy Advance is showing, but I can't help but feel this way. It just gives me that adventurous spirit that I once felt when I played RPGs for the first time. A feeling I've been trying to endlessly recapture since Chrono Trigger. On a much lighter note, how about we talk about Tomato Adventure? And my footage is gone. Yeah, okay, so the first 3 hours of this game, the footage just straight up froze, so it's absolutely nothing for 3 hours. That's fantastic. I love OBS. Golly, what an amazing software. This was actually the first game I played for this video. In fact, it's the focal point of this video. Just like Love Quest in the other cozy RPG video, this is sort of supposed to be the unofficial focal point. It's the game I am the most interested in talking about, in the game that is the most interesting to learn about. And yeah, it was a pretty great way to start this marathon. Before I even talk about the game itself, I want to drop a bombshell on you. There's a full, unreleased Game Boy Color version of this game that literally no one knows exists. There's almost no info on this at all, but it's almost one-to-one the same as the Game Boy Advance version. I have no idea why this was never released, even if it was fully finished, but I'm not Alpha Dream. Which, yes, I'm talking about that Alpha Dream. The Mario and Luigi Alpha Dream. Oh, Alpha Dream, what a sad, sad fate. I have to say, the Game Boy Color version of this game is extremely impressive. I love the later era games for this system, because they always seem to push the envelope and create some crazy products. It's honestly a tragedy that this was never released, despite the fact it's literally the same as the GBA version, like I mentioned earlier. What, they couldn't just release both at the same time? Like, come on. But yeah, I should probably talk about the actual game now. Yeah, it's really good. Obviously, it's by the guys who made Superstar Saga and, Dream Team. Everybody loves Dream Team, right guys? Yeah, totally. I don't know why I took a jab at Dream Team. I like that game. I don't know why I did that. That wasn't funny. Yeah, if you've ever played the original Mario and Luigi games, this will be extremely familiar to you, especially the battles. It doesn't have time-based attacks. I'd say the attacks are more reminiscent of Yeek. I'm fucking using Yeek as a frame of reference. Okay, let's go with that. You do these little mini games, and if you do them correctly, you do more damage. They're called gimmicks, and you can only use them a certain amount of times. When you run out of a gimmick, you can't use it again until you use up all the other ones. And when all the other ones are used up, they reset and you can use them again. You can also adjust the difficulty, which makes the mini games harder, but you do more damage if you succeed. I am ass at some of these mini games though. Like seriously, I'm questioning my intelligence right now. Tomato Adventure also has those Alpha Dream writing quirks to them. It's very charming, but also really weird. Like Alpha Dream games were always wacky, but sort of messed up when you thought about certain aspects for too long. And that's not lost on this game at all. You literally start as this kid living in the ghetto because he's part of some caste of people that hate eating tomatoes. These people are being systematically oppressed because they don't like to eat tomatoes. Who starts a game like that? I just turned on the console. There's also this adult man mad scientist who likes pink is a little too much for me to feel comfortable with it. And the villain wants to harvest the energy of this girl to turn people into toys. There's other smaller stuff like this parrot who really loves Christmas dying and we have to fight his ghost. And there are just parts in this game that feel unsettling. Not in a creepy way, but in a this is weird as hell way. Potman made me irrationally scared, and I don't know why. He keeps getting in my personal space. I hate it. Also, the weird Christmas crab boss from Superstar, I think comes from this game looking at it. I always felt like he was out of place in that game, so it makes sense he's from this. Or at least a reference to an enemy from this game. Also, the atmosphere is, what's the synonym for cozy? Mellow? Yeah, that sounds right. I know I keep saying this, but it is a video about cozy games. I mean, come on. This game is mellow. Fights are easy as hell, the music is upbeat but can also be serene. The set pieces are very nice to look at, and oh my gosh, I love the special attack animation. I love the lighting, I love the sunset, I love the beach and the sand. I am not like Anakin because I actually love sand. It honestly reminds me of those old Flash RPGs I would play when I was too poor for a console. The humor is like a family-friendly version of those games. There are some parts I didn't care for, like these mandatory minigames. I always hated those in Mario and Luigi games, and this is no different here. And I also felt the game at points could be almost too easy. It felt kind of brain dead after a while, and the attacks aren't as intuitive and satisfying as they are in the Mario and Luigi games. But man, I do not give a crap because it's so good. Adventure Time and Tomato Adventure have a very similar style and sense of humor. I have big problems with both of these, but I don't really care about the problems I do have with them, because their problems are so completely overshadowed by all it has to offer. Also, my favorite area was this place that looks like Tenochtitlan mixed with Barbie Land. My footage was frozen for this part, so here's me just walking through it, boringly. Yeah, you missed all the cool stuff. Sorry, guys. Tomato Adventure is a very good game with not much to it, but that makes it actually better somehow. For what it is, there is a lot to experience, and I totally recommend it. Don't come here for a challenge though, please, you won't find it here. Another game that isn't a challenge is Magical Vacation. God, what a gorgeous game. Holy crap. You guys know, I use a lot of pixel art for my backgrounds. So imagine my shock when I realized some of the art I used was from this game. And man, this is one of the best looking games, not just on the system, but like ever in my opinion. opinion. The art is so beautifully done, and you guys know I am biased to love beaches. God, I love beach settings so much, you guys don't understand. The title kind of gives away what this game is. You go on a magical vacation, but not magical in the fact that it was unforgettably amazing, magical in the fact that it's literally magical. Because man, this game starts out rough for these characters. We have to go on a field trip to this beautiful beach, but people have gone missing there before. Many of the characters are excited about this, but many are also very skeptical, suspicious of it even. These people have a lot of depth and are really fleshed out. Each one has their own arc, and I love how this game utilizes child characters. Like I said earlier, RPGs just don't use child characters well in my opinion. They're never able to capture how it truly feels to be a dumb kid. But man, this game does that so well. It reminds me of my childhood in a way. I used to go off on quote-unquote vacations with people my age as well, and I remember it really vividly. The way these kids talk here is very reminiscent of what I remember from my childhood. My favorite character is Pistachio, not only because he's a cute as hell dog, but because he's a meek fellow who's very averse to conflict, and he's at risk of getting held back if he doesn't become stronger, and he knows if he doesn't, he'll never see his friends again. He has to become stronger and learn how to be a better, more resilient person. This arc isn't unusual in media, in fact it's very tropey, but the way it's framed in this game is very unique. No one exists in a vacuum. There's a whole web of relationships and interactions. It's hard to keep up with, but that just makes it feel more real. I've had my eye on this game for years and was planning on playing it, but I never did for whatever reason. But playing it now, yeah, I tapped out at the first battle. Don't get me wrong, I kept playing, but gosh, I wish it just stayed like this. Or I wish the battles were at least different. When looking at screenshots for this, I assumed it was a tactical, grid-based RPG, but no, it's just regular generic-ass turn-based stuff. I know. Earlier, I said I love traditional turn-based stuff, but man, it doesn't hit the same here. I was so captivated by the story that going to this regular RPG format left me extremely disappointed. I guess that says more about the storytelling than the game itself really. The characters and story were so good that I was mad that the RPG I was playing was an RPG. Once the prologue ends, it just feels more generic. The godly storytelling is still there and it's still good, but the character interactions aren't the same and the vibes are no longer as present as they were then. A part of me is extremely disappointed that it didn't stay like the slice of life thingy throughout the entire game. I know this opinion sounds very familiar to the opinion of another YouTuber in a certain video, but she was right. I thought she was being a little hyperbolic, but no, she was right on the money with this. After playing so many of these games, back to back to back to back, I can't help but want more, or at least want something different. And after being blown away by this story, the gameplay just felt underwhelming. The twist sure as hell wasn't underwhelming though. The whole reason we were sent on this vacation and the reason people previously went missing is because the principal shipped these kids off knowing it was dangerous because he wants to train super soldiers for some vague war. And he's literally willing to let half of them die just to make a few of them stronger. Man, what a fucking okay. Yeah, wow. You might think this is a spoiler, but no, it's not like the first 30 minutes of the game. Overall, it's a generic RPG with an extremely well put together narrative. Too bad there's gameplay in between that narrative that kind of makes it less good. If you only care about the story, it's not worth the playthrough because it will just drip feed you through the rest of the game. I would still recommend it though. It's very underrated and got little attention in both Japan and the West. This game deserves a lot. I know I sounded negative, but this is a very special game for what it is, and I can't fault it for what I wanted it to be. Please play this when you get the chance. It's very good. Just like in the last Cozy RPGs video, let me end this by listing off some honorable mentions. Zoid's Legacy, a badass game about giant mecha robot animals, hell yes. It's based on an IP I've never heard of before, which I'm mad about because I would have loved this as a kid. Sadly, this series seems kinda dead, but this game is great, both visually and gameplay wise. Sigma Star Saga. I only picked it for the name and it's pretty decent. If you haven't played this game, you're not a true Sigma. Get the fuck out of my channel. It has these 2D shooter segments with these top-down parts. I like the art, and it's pretty unique gameplay and setting-wise. I've never seen a 2D space shooter that's also an RPG. Although I'm not the biggest fan of this gameplay though, it's good, but just not my thing. Summon Knight, Swordcraft story, chibi anime girl, slaughtering cute innocent creatures. 10 out of 10 game. Oh man, I'm getting a headache from this. It's too much coziness here. Let's end the video now. I can't take it anymore. Man, this video was relaxing to make and relaxing to edit. I haven't started editing yet, actually. I hope it's gonna be relaxing. I have like 6 days to edit this. This is not gonna be fun at all. I'm gonna hate myself. Ironically enough, playing the games themselves was the least relaxing part of all of this. No, that's still speculative, actually. I haven't started editing yet. That's a literal lie. Either way, getting footage sucks, but I had a lot of fun with this. I hope you discovered some cool games, and I'm definitely going to bed. Good night, guys. I'm not going to bed. Also, consider supporting me on Patreon. It's only $1 minimum. You'll be supporting me financially as well as getting access to unreleased content and early sneak peeks of stuff. Okay, bye.